There is a bias against Colorado and Deion Sanders, whether people want to admit it or not.
You are Locked On Buffs, your daily podcast on the Colorado Buffaloes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Buffs. I am your host, Kevin Borba. Today's episode of Locked On Buffs is brought to you by our sponsors, Ultimate GM. Ultimate College Football Head Coach is a brand new mobile game that is completely free, has no ads, and is 100% playable offline. Use the promo code LOCKEDONCFB, Locked On College Football, all caps, inside the game store to receive a free boost to your program. Begin your coaching legacy today. We are also brought to you by the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day for free and available wherever you get your podcast. So thank you guys for tuning in every single day, making me your first listen of the day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast. Like I said, we will be returning back to our AM releases this week, with the season starting next week. We're going to be, depending on what time zone you're in, every episode will be released at 9:30 a.m. Pacific time, so noon 30, if you will, Eastern time. And then for those of you in the mountain region, 10:30. And we're going to have some really cool reoccurring guests. We already have Scott Proctor on the docket. He will be joining us for every Tuesday episode. It's going to be awesome, and you guys won't want to miss it. So without further ado, let's dive in to unfair expectations and narrative around Deion Sanders and this Deion Sanders, Coach Prime, if you will, and this discourse around him. As you guys know, I talked about it last week, and I'd like to apologize for not having an episode the past 2 days. Internet outage did me dirty. Thought I was going to be able to get one up yesterday. Didn't work out. Okay, Deion Sanders, Colorado. They go 4-8 in year one, and it's like people forgot how down in the dumps this program was. Like, for reference, Colorado was, I think the number of losses off the top of my head is 5-19 in the 2 years prior to Deion Sanders' arrival. So he almost won more games last year than they won in the past 2 years. So 2022, they went 1-11. They were one of the worst college football teams, arguably in history. And then 2021, they were 4-8. So 5-19 in the 2 years before Deion Sanders' arrival. He comes in, kind of flips the script in terms of the roster. He says, hey, if you were on last year's team, get out. I don't want you. We're bringing in replacements. We're bringing in portal players, and we do not need you here. And caused a lot of stir, whatever. I know that upset a lot of people, which is one of the many reasons there is a bias against him. But at the end of the day, Colorado quadrupled their win total. They brought life into the program. The fan base is at an all-time high. Social media following, not that they're playing for clicks or anything, all-time high, right? Like, people care about Colorado, and you cannot say that just 2 seasons ago. People did not care about Colorado unless they went there or had some sort of familial tie to Colorado. And so there is a dangerous sort of narrative being created by certain people in the media that I don't think really does Coach Prime justice. I don't think it really gives him a fair shot. And I think it's sort of a personal vendetta against what he stands for and what he's done so far in Boulder, where these people are coming up with these sort of narratives. Like, I already talked about it last week. He has some of the best odds to be one of the first head coaches fired this upcoming season. One, his team's far too talented. They're going to win at least 6 games. I projected 7-5 as sort of my regular season projection. I think they could win a bowl game as well, so that puts them at 8-5 on the year. But yesterday, Coach, I wanted to make sure to talk about this. I know this is sort of a day old, if you will, but Paul Feinbaum was talking with Stephen A. Smith and says, Stephen A., I don't think anything's going to happen this year other than just a lot of white noise coming out of Boulder, Colorado. I think Coach Prime's already had a rough offseason. He snapped back at the reporters. I know you've dealt with that, and I'm not looking to relitigate some of the reasons why, but I just think it's going to be a tough sell for the nation as we get ready for a playoff where so many other schools are involved, to waste a lot of time, and I really mean that, to waste on Coach Prime. So obviously, we know what the reporter situation was. One of them was about CBS took an African-American reporter off of a project with Coach Prime after he did all the dirty work, essentially. Like, he got all of the interviews, he did all of this, and then they assigned a different reporter who was white to work with Coach Prime, and Coach Prime was not about that. He called out Eric Christensen of CBS Sports, who I think was just a casualty by association. He was the local CBS reporter, and he was like, "Hey, I'm not talking to CBS until they fix what they did. They fixed it. Coach Prime offered to do a one-on-one with him." And then Paul Feinbaum continues saying he's Hollywood, it's sizzle. He's done a remarkable job of getting attention, but really that's about it. There are a lot of question marks out there. Is he really a great coach, or is he simply just a showman? I don't think he's just a showman, or Stephen A. Smith said. But I'm going to continue on with what Paul Feinbaum said, because excuse me, I don't know why I keep saying fall. Paul Feinbaum was essentially pushing the narrative that year 2 is sort of or bust for Deion Sanders, and I don't think it's really fair, because it's like, what other coach are you giving 2 years to turn a program around? And then this is the quote that I was wanting to read to you guys. I think it's all about Coach Prime. Encore. Listen, the season was a bust. The second half of the season, the first half had a lot of energy, and it was a lot of energy because of people like Stephen A. Smith showing up, giving love, and making the program relevant. Of course, it didn't hurt that they won the first couple games, not against great competition, but they did it on a big stage. How can season 1 be a bust? The season as a whole was a success for where the program was at. Now, was their finish down the stretch atrocious? Yes. Everything about it. Blowing that 29-0 lead against Stanford was like the pinnacle of what the hell is going on. Losing, I think it was they started off 3-0, lost their next 2, beat Arizona State, and then losing pretty much every game the rest of the season. Not great. I don't disagree with that fact. The second half of the season was a letdown because they were so close in those games. But to call the season a failure is a disservice to sort of what Coach Prime was dealing with, what he turned around, and what he fixed. Like, this program was bad. Like, not only bad, they were generationally bad. They were irrelevant. Now they are on a track to being discussed as a Big 12 dark horse. If a few things go their way, they can contend for a Big 12 title. They have the talent on paper. Now, obviously, when it's on paper and in person, things get a little different, but they have the talent. They have the buzz, whether people want to admit it or not. In college football, every program in the country would love the buzz that Colorado's getting. The only problem that every program in the country has with Colorado is getting the buzz is it's not their program, right? A little jealousy here or there, it happens. Everyone wants to be famous. Everyone wants to be like, well, we went 9-3 and no one cares about us. Yeah, that's because of the Coach Prime effect. And he sort of has brought in this newly found energy to college football and Colorado football specifically that really is palpable. Like, it's hard to express how big of an impact he has on the game because we've never seen anything like it before. And so I just wanted to sort of talk about this narrative that it was season 1 was a bust. Season 2 is like make or break for Deion Sanders' coaching. That's not the case. Let's look at other coaches around the country. Kenny Dillingham inherited Arizona State. They went 3-9. Colorado beat them. He is nowhere. When it comes to Kenny Dillingham, everyone's like, oh, he's got a tough rebuild ahead of him. They have a lot of infrastructure with NIL that they need to work on. The fan support isn't there, blah, blah, blah. Why is it different for Kenny Dillingham? Well, obviously, Kenny Dillingham is not as outspoken as Coach Prime. And I think that works against Coach Prime because I think people dislike him as a person. And so they're unable to separate the person from the job or the program. And so they're like, we don't like Deion Sanders. So, in effect, we're going to hold his program to a completely different standard. But those same people, will say that Colorado is not on the level of the Texases, the Georgias, the Alabamas of the world, which they aren't. But then again, they hold him to a standard that is similar to that of Scott Satterfield, 3-9 at Cincinnati. He's probably going to be fired because he was someone who was already on the hot seat, or it seemed like he was on the hot seat at his previous job. Deion Sanders, 4-8. Brent Key, good year at Georgia Tech, 7-6. Zach Arnett was fired at 4-6 and Mississippi State in year 1. Matt Rule, 5-7. Colorado beat them, but no one's talking about firing Matt Rule, right? Troy Taylor, Stanford. They have a big rebuild ahead of him. Nobody's talking about him. Why? Nobody's talking about him being fired. Why? Because it's unrealistic to fire someone after year 2. It is unrealistic to base someone's entire tenure off of their first season. The only person in college football who will sort of be under this a mass amount of pressure in year one is Kalen DeBoer, and it's because he's taking over a program that wins championships nearly every year, it feels like, right? Alabama is a different sort of standard in college football. And so for the people comparing Coach Prime, or not comparing, but holding him to a standard of that level, it's just unrealistic. And it's weird because it's the same people that say Colorado's not relevant or Deion Sanders will be a good replacement for Lincoln Riley at USC. And then all of a sudden, when the season gets closer and they got their views and their clicks, they're like, yeah, this dude sucks. Pick a side, pick a stance, right? I think realistically, and I'm just going to end this little segment on this. If Deion Sanders finishes below 500, it'll be a disappointing season. I won't lie to you. This team has the makings of a bowl team. This team has the makings of a dark horse Big 12 team. So if they finish below 500, it's disappointing, but it's not a fireable offense. Unless they were to go like 1-11 and the wheels just completely fell off and you had Deion Sanders like yelling at reporters and stuff like that, then maybe you pull the plug. But I don't think that's going to happen. You have one of the best quarterbacks in the country. You have one of the best players in the country in Travis Hunter. So no. Everyone just pump the brakes. Give Colorado a chance as a program. Stop looking at Colorado through the lens of Deion Sanders said, right? I think a lot of people are holding Colorado to the standard of Deion Sanders said they're going to make it to the playoff. Oh, well, so now we have to be really hard on them. Find me a coach around college football that you ask them, hey, do you want to make it to the playoff this year? Or what are your expectations for the team this year? Find me a coach that says, you know what? I think we're due for about 5 to 7 wins. Don't think we'll make the playoff, but I think we'll have fun. Find me a coach that says that, and then I'll change my opinion. Because realistically, every coach in college football is telling their team, hey, guys, we get a couple breaks this way. We get the offensive line has 1 year under their belt. Every team thinks that they could contend at the start of the year. That's the joy of college football because there are teams that will surprise us. So stop holding Colorado to the standard that Deion Sanders is saying because it's not anything new. Every coach has confidence in their team as they should. And it's just not a fair assessment. It's not a right assessment of what this program, of where this program is headed in terms of the 2024 college football season. When we come back, we're going to be talking about a recent coach departure and his ties with the Saudi Arabia or his ties with the Middle East. This episode of Locked On Buffs is brought to you by our sponsors over at Ibotta. Sandals, sunscreen, snacks for the kids. What do these have in common? You're probably buying a ton again this summer, but don't stress, about the cost. Use Ibotta and get cash back on all of your purchases when you stock up on all your summer essentials. Are you taking that dream vacation this summer, but dreading the cost? With Ibotta, you get cash back on all your purchases, so you can spend more time making memories this summer and less time dreaming about them. Ibotta is a free app that lets you earn cash back every time you shop. Earn on hundreds of items from groceries to beauty supplies, even toys, so you can make sure you're beating inflation no matter what you're purchasing. The average Ibotta user earns $256 per year. That could cover the cost of an entire shopping trip, that flight you've been eyeing, or the fancy dinner you've been craving. Right now, Ibotta is offering our listeners $5 just for trying Ibotta by using code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE when you register. Just go to the App Store or Google Play Store and download the free Ibotta app to start earning cash back and use code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE. That's IBOTTA in the Google Play or App Store and use code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE. Okay, Colorado had a bit of a weird sort of last-minute coaching departure, and I think a lot of people really wanted to pin this on Coach Prime, and they wanted it so badly to be like, Colorado, the culture there is it's just atrocious, right? And it's a little more than meets the eye. I think this is an unheard of story thus far in college football. I think it was something that was memed, but never something that we thought would come to fruition. So, according to a report by Colorado Buffaloes on SI, special teams coordinator Trevor Riley went on ESPN Utah yesterday. And let me give you context. This isn't according to the report. He went on ESPN Utah yesterday said that he left Colorado because of a disagreement over NIL, how they were using the NIL space. He had an idea that he thought could have helped them not have to rely on the same pool of donors. And Colorado opted to not, or their NIL space or business manager, whoever, opted to not go with his method. And so it was reported, or the way he said it was like, we disagreed, so I resigned. Well, today it was reported that there's no bad feelings between him and anyone with the program, but he was at odds with a few people in the administration. According to the report, it says Riley spent time in the Middle East this past holiday season lobbying Saudi Arabia's public investment fund for name, image, and likeness funding on behalf of Colorado football. A copy of what Riley says was in his resignation letter to Rick George, which they got a hold of at SI. They said the arrangement was that because I did all the NIL work at Jackson State and got us through, you guys would pay me a modest salary and make me the special teams coordinator, which should have freed up my time to handle NIL activities. You pay me $90,000 a year and let me handle special teams. I did all this work in your name and was told to pursue it. I burned through all my contacts in the Mormon community, which is worth about $3 trillion. Now I can't get these people to answer my calls because I just found out today that none of my endeavors will happen. Said I even went to Saudi Arabia and got a meeting with the Saudis who were interested in pursuing business. I have email receipts to prove it, and you guys let it fall flat on its face. And then Riley said he acted on his own according to pool donors. I did nothing illegal and was trying to help Colorado the best way I knew how. So clearly he had a goal or an idea and it didn't work out. Very interesting idea to say the least. And I'm not going to really comment on it because I'm not educated enough on the matter to really comment on getting funding from that particular region. I know Live Golf is from that particular region or the funding for it. And I think that it was an interesting idea, right? I do think that if I had to guess, the program probably did not want the pushback of partnering up with them. That would be my guess. That's my uneducated guess. Don't take that as Bible. I don't know enough about this sort of space to sort of make that judgment, but I do think it was interesting that he did not mention that in his interview. He also went on record and picked Utah to win the Big 12, which I feel like is a big slap in the face to Colorado. But for the people that are sort of making this a Colorado thing, I think once you hear this, you have to be like, yeah, probably a good call to part ways by both parties, right? So really interesting. Never thought I'd talk about that, but that's why Colorado lost a coach. They also added a coach who worked as a special assistant to Nick Saban last year and then worked for Michigan in 2022. And as we've seen in the well-off media videos, he's high energy, very hands-on with the linebackers, and I think he adds a unique perspective. So everything happens for a reason, I guess. When we come back, I'm going to be talking about what a 5-0 start does for the Colorado Buffaloes this upcoming season. This episode of Locked On Buffs is brought to you by Ultimate College Football Head Coach, or HC. Hey, Locked On Buffs fans, I want to take a moment to give you heads up on a brand new mobile game that I think you're going to love as much as I do. Ultimate College Football HC Head Coach. In this amazing game and simulation, you get to step into the shoes of a head coach and lead your college football program to glory. Could you imagine actually being the head coach of Colorado? From recruiting players and hiring coaching staff to overseeing training camps and handling school scholarships, you control every crucial detail of your program. It's all in your hands. Will you be able to handle the pressure? And here's what I really love about the game. You are responsible for calling offensive plays during the games. Your strategy will not only determine the success of your football season, but it will shape the future and legacy of your program. Ultimate College Football Head Coach is completely free, has no ads, and is 100% playable offline. You can play on the go as you want and when you want. And of course, we have a special offer for your Locked On Buffs fans. For you Locked On Buffs fans, use the promo code Locked On CFB, Locked On College Football, all caps, inside the game store to receive a free boost to start your program. Make sure to take advantage of this perk as it will get your team off to a strong start. To download the game, just visit ultimate-cfb.com, ultimate-cfb/-.com, or look it up on the app stores. Ultimate College Football HC. Begin your coaching legacy today. Speaking of coaching legacies, Coach Prime has one, and I do think that he has the potential to sort of take a next step of his coaching career. But first, I want to tell you guys about the Locked On postcast that we're going to be doing over here on Locked On Buffs. After every game, there's going to be an episode on this channel, an audio episode, and one of our great hosts is going to be talking about what went right, what went wrong. It's going to be really cool, so make sure to check it out. Coach Prime's legacy, I don't really know if it's not defined by these first 4 games, but these first 4 games for Colorado are pivotal for how their season will go. I've had people look me in the eyes and tell me, I think Colorado's going to finish below 500. I've had people look me in the eyes and say, I think Colorado wins 11 games. I'm somewhere in the middle. I feel like a bowl game, like it's bowl game or bust in my eyes, right? And I do think that their ceiling is 9 wins, or their best case scenario, not ceiling. But I also think they have a low floor, right? I think this team is very boom or bust in the sense of like, not in the sense of like, this will define Coach Prime's legacy, like some people are saying. I just think that this season could really go either way. So I look at these first 5 games, and obviously the first one is next week. North Dakota State comes to town. Very challenging opening week game. They are welcoming a North Dakota State team that wins FCS titles frequently. They have 9 since 2021 or 2011, excuse me. 9 since 2021 would be crazy, but they have 9 since 2011. Colorado, according to ESPN, is 9.5 point favorites. They have a 71% chance of winning, and it's going to be a really, really, really fun game to watch to kick off the year. I think they win that game. It's a little bit of a statement, right? Nebraska, week 2. First of all, before I dive into this, right? If Colorado starts 5-0, they're going to be ranked. I think it will silence some doubters, and I think it will build confidence for this team. And I think that's what this team needs. They need confidence, but not too much. They don't need that irrational confidence, because I do think their 3-0 start got to them last year. I think they had a feeling of invincibility. Like they were like, we're on top of the world. And then all of a sudden it was like, oh, we just got our butts absolutely whooped by Oregon. We blew it against USC. And then Stanford comes to town a few weeks later, and we almost lose to Colorado State, by the way. Stanford comes to town a few weeks later, and we blow a 29-point lead, right? And I think Colorado was just like, what just happened, right? I think if they start 5-0, which I personally, my initial projection had them going 5-0. I think it's tough to win 3 road games in a month. That's the only time this season that they have 3 road games in a month. They have 2, in November, but in September, they have at Nebraska. The following week, they go to Colorado State, which is up the road a little bit, but still a true road game. And I think it's going to be a hostile environment. I think that Colorado and Colorado State have really rekindled the Rocky Mountain Showdown rivalry, if you will. And I do think a 5-0 start is in play for Colorado, and I think it would move mountains for them. But I need for this to happen. I'll give you the breakdown, because I already told you what it would do for the program. They need to protect Deion Sanders, establish the run, stop the run, and obviously limit the big plays. But Nebraska is going to have freshman quarterback Dylan Raiola. They announced him as a starter yesterday. He's going to obviously want to sling the ball around, but they're going to lean on their run game a little bit to help him out. Colorado State didn't really need the run game last year, but you never know. Baylor, physical run game. They have a quarterback that could run the ball. They have a physical rushing attack. UCF, maybe the best running back quarterback running duo in college football. So I think a 5-0 start is in play for Colorado. I think that would get Colorado ranked. I think it would give this team confidence, and I think it would silence some doubters and maybe get Colorado in the conversations for a Big 12 contending team. You guys comment below. Will Colorado start 5-0? If they don't, which game do you expect them to drop? Let me know what you guys think. I will see you guys tomorrow. This has been another episode of Locked On Buffs. Make sure to like, subscribe, and follow.